how come you hear in life about so many Catholics that told the Catholic Church or left the Catholic Church very openly and enthusiastically left the Catholic Church and then became full-blown atheists afterwards. And every time you talk to them, they bash church and religion all the time.
Right.
Why is it such a hard, why is it so hardcore?
Okay.
I feel like when people leave Protestant or evangelical or whatever, it's like depression, not I have a whole new theological doctrine now. And this is what you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see. And obviously I think we've talked about a little bit of this, like with the deconstruction and that kind of thing from the evangelical side.
It's a different kind of deconstruction.
Yeah.
From Catholicism.
Because I think what you're talking about is like, they're actually walking away from the faith completely.
Yeah.
They're not questioning it. They're just walking away from it.
Yeah.
They're not trying to restructure it, right? They're not trying to find something new within it. They're just walking away. But
it's like a hardcore walking away.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. And here's where, and I don't know, man. I think there's probably a lot of thoughts behind that, and you know, of why this is happening and where, you know, is the Catholic Church going wrong on something? Is it doing something off? You know, all those kind of things. But in talking to some people that I know who were in the Catholic Church, raised in the Catholic Church, have left the Catholic Church, and one person in particular is like full-blown atheist now. Mm-hmm. And in talking with them, they would say that, one, they never saw any meaning behind what was happening in going to Mass every week. That there was a complete disconnect for them in what was in going to Mass with their family, and then what the rest of the week would play out within their family. So in other words, yes, their family was going to Mass every week, but their family wasn't living any differently. You know, like they saw there was no conversations about following Jesus or following God or being in relationship with the Lord. And in fact, they would say, you know, my parents or my family, they were just going out and just doing the opposite, right? Like there's nothing about their lifestyle that would have lent you to think, oh yeah, they're Christian.
Okay.
But yet they're still going to Mass every week and being told that was enough. And I think when you grow up that way...
Well, I think that's a problem with Mass, not with his parents.
Well, no, I think the
parents.
Yeah, I think the parents' issue, though, is like, but you've got to, you know, like, it's got to be more than just the tradition of going to Mass. Like, they've got to live out their faith.
Well, so, I guess what I'm saying is the tradition of going to Mass a faith experience at all to some people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. And I do think this is part of like when I think in an ideal world, what you're sharing with people is like participating in the sacraments is actually leading you closer to Jesus. Okay? Like, in other words, hey, we're going to partake in the Eucharist today at Mass, and in so doing, the tangible presence of Jesus here is leading us to Jesus. We're getting closer to Jesus because of that, right? We're being sanctified because of it, right? We experience, you know, we go to confession, and it's, again, there's the presence of the Lord. We're getting closer to Jesus. You know, like the sacraments are, in other words, the sacraments are leading you to Christ, you know. And I think, unfortunately, what happens is, and this can happen in Catholic churches, it can happen in high liturgy churches on the Protestant side, within the Lutheran world or Anglican world or Episcopalian world, where people are participating in the sacraments, they're participating in the high liturgy, but there's not a connection to, oh, well, this should be leading me closer to Jesus, or this is why we do this, and it's informing me in my faith. And it, you know, and it's pushing me toward it. And then also the other part of this is like, there's not a high encouragement of, man, I'm going to get in the Bible and I'm going to read the Bible for myself. I'm going to dive in, because there's such a high value on hearing from the priest and let them teaching you, that it's almost, I'm not saying it's discouraged, because it's not. You'll find Catholic Bible studies and those kind of things. So I'm not saying those don't exist, right? And that people aren't spending time in the Word. But I also again, in talking to some people, that was never part of their experience as a child or adolescent in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
There was never a personal connection. It was like, oh, I'm going to Mass and I'm going to do this liturgy. And
Okay.
in other words, it became pointless, if I'm being honest.
Well, okay, so I guess what I'm asking sort of is like, because there are some evangelical people or whoever
do the
that
same
you
thing.
talk to that think all of that is everything that they do at a Catholic church is heresy or whatever, right?
Sure.
And so, you know how we talk about like God didn't show up today?
Right.
If the evangelicals are right, everything Catholics do is heresy, God's not showing up.
Right.
So are people who are becoming atheist after going to Catholic church becoming that way because the Catholic Church is supposed to be the highest, most holiest thing, and if they feel nothing during service, then, or, you know, they don't feel like any of it has any meaning, then I guess I'm an atheist now.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Right?
Because if there's no other option.
Right.
Like, it's not like in the evangelical church, you know, like, all right, cool, I'm not connecting here, but maybe if I have a different experience in this church over here,
Right.
it might be different.
Right.
But if you grow up and you're told we're the only true church, every other church is false. They're false teachers.
Right.
And it's in essence a false religion. So if, you know, anyway, I won't get into all that, but yeah, if that's the case, then there's nowhere else to go. Right. Like, and so the only option is to go, well, this is bull. I'm out. You know? And so, and I do think you see that on both sides, Catholic and Protestant, where they just get mad and they're like, I'm out. But I do think, at least in the evangelical world, there is the place of, man, I don't know if this is really, you know, is this right? Is this okay? I don't, you know, and then you may end up at another church, another denomination. Heck, it could be the same denomination, just a different church. And you're just going, oh, wait, I get it. You know, clicks, whatever.
Yeah.
And there is no other option in the Catholic Church, right? Like, it's them or bust. And so, and I think as much as evangelicals have gotten knocked for being narrow-minded, Catholics probably even more so. Okay. Because their tradition, their history, we've talked about before, draws, you'd probably like them because they draw really, I mean, it's very clear, distinct lines.
Yeah.
Right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right? True and false.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah, but I do think there's people who probably don't appreciate it.
Right.
And they don't
Well, I appreciate the fact that you have the lines. That doesn't mean I'm going to follow them all the time.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Obviously.
Obviously. So, but yeah, so I think that's probably part of it.
For all his the glory.
Yes. Yes, that's what you quote that all the way to your deathbed. So, yeah. But no, I do think that's part of it, but I don't know. I don't know if they're, I'd be interested to see if it was more prevalent, I guess I would say, to see if individuals were, like, statistically, were people leaving the Catholic Church more prone to become atheists than those leaving a Protestant church.
Okay.
And I don't know that stat. So.